Daytona 1988. That was one of the most terrifying crashes ever seen in NASCAR Winston Cup racing. Richard, that was a close call.
Well, it really was, Benny. I guess of all the wrecks I've ever been in, I've been in a bunch of them. That was probably the most spectacular. You know, Daytona Beach, a lot of people watching. You know, I didn't do it on the backstretch. I had to do it in front of everybody. And, you know, I remember the car getting sideways. And then the next thing I remember is the car backing up to the wall. And I just seen the asphalt coming in front of me. And I said, Richard, you better hold on. This is going to be tough. And I remember spinning 3 times on his nose and then hitting the ground and sliding out and stopping. And then about that time, something hit the car. I didn't know what it was till after I watched it on the film. And then the car really got violent. Boy, it spun around and tore the gas tank and everything off of it.
Any driver that's been involved in Winston Cup racing for any period of time has had a lot of close calls. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, close calls. Along with Richard Petty, Darrell Waltrip, Cale Yarborough, and myself, Benny Parsons, close calls in NASCAR Winston Cup racing. Hello everyone, I'm Benny Parsons, along with Richard Petty, Cale Yarborough, and Darrell Waltrip. Some time ago, the four of us did a TV show in which we discussed the various crashes we've had in our careers. Since then, a lot of fans have asked me, when are you guys going to do another TV show? Here we are, to talk about the bad things that have happened to us during our careers. And the amazing thing is that when we discuss it, it's going to come out of our mouth as comedy. How we can talk about being that close to death and laugh about it's beyond me. I guess, without a doubt, the most widely seen crash in Winston Cup history is Cale leaving the racetrack in Darlington, South Carolina. Cale, you're going through the air, what, 100 miles an hour? You're suspended in there. What do you feel like when you're doing that?
Well, Benny, that was a long time ago, you know, but...
You forgot?
No, I'll never forget that. I promise you I didn't forget it.
And he ain't going to tell you what he really felt like.
That was in 1965 at Darlington, and, you know, I was just getting started pretty good in the racing business, and I was driving, first real good ride I ever had was Banjo Matthews, and I had a pretty good race going. I was racing with Sam McQuagg, who was another newcomer at the time, and Sam and I were battling for the lead is what it amounted to, and we'd come down the front stretch, and I'd get up by Sam. Sam was leading the race, and I'd get up by him, and he cut me off going into the first turn, lap after lap, and this kept going on. And so one time I got all the way up by Sam, and I figured that, you know, he wasn't going to cut me off this time. He could see me good, and we'd go on into the corner, I'd be all right, and I'd get on by him.
That's what you get for figuring.
He cut me off again. And when he did, we just bumped just a little bit. The cars didn't hit hard, but it just got my car airborne, and it went completely over the guardrail, not into the guardrail and bouncing off of it. It went over the guardrail, out of the first turn at Darlington, and it's, what, 3 stories down on the other side over there. And I'm going to tell you, it was quite a ride. It got awful quiet all of a sudden. And I looked out of the thing went out. I knew I was in trouble, but, you know, it happens so quick. And,
a lot of other people knew you were in trouble too.
But it happened so quick, you know, and like I say, all of a sudden it got awful quiet in there, and I looked around, I saw a lot of grass, you know, and I said, oh boy, there ain't no grass on that racetrack. And I knew I was in deep trouble. But it went on out of the racetrack, and something like that, you know, really, most time when you get in a wreck on the racetrack, things happen so quick, you know, it's bam, and it's over with. But buddy, when you go sailing and you know that thing's going to hit, and it's going to hit hard, and you got time to think about how hard it's going to hit and what's going to happen, that's a tough ride. And it was a tough ride. That thing, it hit nose first, and it went end over end over end, and finally stopped out in the parking lot out there up by a telephone pole, and the car was absolutely demolished, except right where I was sitting. And I walked away from it, and the good Lord was riding with me that day.
No injuries at all?
None whatsoever. Just,
I remember that really good because I was sitting in, there wasn't a lot of races on TV then. That was on Wide World of Sports, I think it was.
Still is.
And yeah, that and the guy coming down the ski ramp, right?
Yeah, right. That was agony of defeat.
But I was sitting at home in my living room, and it's just like Cale came through my TV screen, you know, and landed in my living room. But the neat thing is, when the car, they haven't even stopped talking about him doing this, and he's running back up to the top of the track. The car, the dust hadn't even settled yet, or I don't think it's even come up yet, to tell you the truth. And Cale's up there waving. He is okay.
That's what youth does for you. I didn't know any better.
You wait for him to get you.
I wait for him to come get me now.
That was 22 years ago, wasn't it?
Afraid to say it was.
But he was just a rookie, just getting started good, you know.
Yeah.
This has been someplace. Richard had a...
Yeah, I've had my troubles with it down here too. I guess 70 was the most spectacular wreck I've ever been in. It wasn't, I've been in some probably worse than that, but it was a real spectacular deal. What happened, we'd come down and we had qualified the Superbird. This was 1970. And I got out there playing around with that thing and got over my head and then crashed it. So when we crashed it, that didn't get on TV, you know.
Well, I got a story to tell you about crashing that Superbird when you get through. Go ahead.
Anyhow, wiped that car out. And in fact, I was telling you, they had a plaque. I won in 1967 where I broke Daddy's record of 54 wins. And it was 55 wins, and they put a plaque there. I wiped that plaque out. They got it here in the deal now. But anyhow, I wiped that out. But I wiped the car out, so we had to go back and get the short track car. So we came back, got with the short track car, and the short track car was something like probably a second slower because it wasn't a slope nose car and stuff. Anyhow, we got to running in the race, and I had run into the wall in 1 and 2 corner and knocked the front end out of line. And when I did that, the car, I had to slow down a while, and then I got the car back up to speed after about 8 or 10 laps and come turning around number 4 corner and lost it again. When it hit the outside wall, then it broke the steering end. It come back inside and hit the inside guardrail and went up and turned over 3 or 4 times, all real spectacular like. Now, you know, I have them rags in my mouth, and these rags got to coming out. They didn't know what it was. You know? You look back at that, it was a big deal then. You know, really, we tore up 2 cars really because Pete Hamilton was driving one, and he tore up the other car. So that was 3 cars we tore up in that one race, and then I was laid up for 4 or 5 weeks, didn't get to drive.
You know, that was my first year in Winston Cup racing, 1970, and I was in awe of the whole deal, and I just couldn't believe Richard, after qualifying on Thursday, runs into the wall and tears the car up. I'm not used to this. So I can't wait to tell somebody, get home and tell somebody. So I drive, when I race at Darlington, I go home. I live about 70 miles from here, so I go home. I'm going up the road, and I'm in a hurry to get home and tell somebody, and the South Carolina patrolman pulled me over.
So you told him, right?
So I told him. After he got through writing a ticket, I said, "Boy, did you hear about Richard Petty? He crashed his car and tore it all to pieces." He said, "Yeah, I know. I just talked to Richard about 15 minutes ago."
I left the racetrack before you did, right?
Yeah, that's right. They've got a speeding ticket going up there.
You can believe it.
When you were talking about the most spectacular crash, I thought you were talking about at Daytona when Cale went airborne qualifying.
You left the ground there?
Yeah, I left the ground. I was, it was qualifying, you know, and nobody had never run 200 miles an hour in Daytona. So we decided to lay the spoiler back a little bit more than what we had.
You're on back.
You know all about that.
I know all about that.
And anyway, Wardell Wilson was crew chief, and we decided to lay the spoiler back a little bit more and go for the 200. We thought we could do it. And we made the first lap, and the car was a little squirrely. I knew I was on the ragged edge, but you had 2 laps qualifying then. So I made the first lap and got through the first and second turn of the second lap and went down the back stretch. And as I got into number 3, it got quiet again. Actually, it was like it was in slow motion. It felt like slow motion. It just floated, you know, up and went over and bounced off the wall. And thank goodness I didn't hit anything hard. It was a spectacular thing, but it never hit anything real hard. And finally came to a stop. And you know why I did it, I don't know. I guess I had it on my mind, but you know how you do funny things. they got to me, and the first thing I asked them before I got out of the car was how fast I ran. You know, how stupid can you be?
No, man, that's going to save your job. If I got 200, I'll be all right.
Maybe that's what he's asking me. I always wonder
Man,
why
I
I
hope
ask
I
that
went
question.
200.
199 crashed.
Oh,
I'd have probably been out of a
been
job,
hurting,
yeah.
buddy.
But that was quite a ride. I don't like those quiet rides.
No, I know it.
You had a quiet ride down there too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Or was yours noisy?
No, it got real
Yeah, you
quiet.
tell us about that one. I
Same.
saw that the first time, so tell it right.
Same deal. I'd gotten a Daytona, turn 3, turn 4. I'd gotten a lap down early in the race, and I was trying to catch back up. I was trying to make a lap up. And a caution came out. I must have been running 10th, probably, in line. There were 10 cars in front of me, all of them in the lead lap. And I was the first car lap down, and everybody slowed down some, but not near enough. But I'm passing guys on the outside, the inside, trying to get back to the start-finish line first, and I believe Dick Brooks was leading the race. And old Brooks, you know, he saw me coming, I think, the best I can remember, and he decided his car got real big all of a sudden, and I didn't have anywhere to go. And it was either run into him running 200 mile an hour or try to miss him. So when I come off of turn 4, I had to try to miss him, and when I did, I lost the car.
Here's Richard Brooks coming down the line, and here's one car trying to get in front of him. Oh, in trouble.
That's Darrell
It is Waltrip. Out of control, he slams the wall.
He's gonna get
Undercut, and he almost nails Yarborough. I don't understand. He may have been trying to make up a lap.
I think
And the
he
car
was trying to make up.
spun around backwards, and when it did, it got real quiet. Because the back end came up in the air, and it was sailing backwards, and I can remember thinking, oh no, this is not good, this is going to hurt. And if I leaned forward, I leaned way forward, because I was going to hit going backwards, you know.
And close your eyes.
And, oh yeah, I closed my eyes a long time ago. I saw it was Brooks, I closed my eyes. But if I leaned forward and I hit, that's when it still had the dirt bank, and I hit that dirt bank. Had I probably just laid back against the headrest and relaxed, or at least not been so tense, I probably wouldn't have hurt me so bad. But I leaned forward, and when I hit that wall, well, my head went way over here somewhere and busted the side of my helmet, and gave me a concussion. But the funny thing was, I went back out in the racetrack in front of Cale, and that's the same race you wrecked in, and flipped over down there at the same time this happened to me. I went out in the track in front of Cale, and he almost hit me, and he went on to win the race. But so they get me out of the car, and my wife's running down there, and Jeff Hammond's running down there, and I'm laying on the ground on a stretcher beside the car, and they're all trying to. Jeff runs up and asks me, "Am I okay?" And I don't remember this now. This is just him telling me. And I'm laying on the stretcher, and all these cars are going by, and they done put down a bunch of stay dry. And he said, "What happened? What happened?" And that stay dry flew all over. I said, "Jeff, it's raining." It's raining down here. It must be raining. I think that's what happened. And then I just tapped on back out. But that was a tough ride. That's about the worst ride I ever had.
Did you spend the night in the hospital?
I spent the night in the hospital, and that was the only time that's the first time in my career I'd ever had to been helped out of the car. I've been in wrecks before. I broke my ankle, or bruised up my arms, or cracked up my ribs, or things like that, where next day you knew you was hurt. But that's the first time I'd ever had to been helped out of a car, and I tell you, it scared the heck out of me. Heck, scared the heck out of me.
I'll tell you one thing. He was lucky that it knocked him out when he hit the inside wall, and he came back across, and he didn't remember anything, and he only ended up with a concussion out of the whole deal. But if he'd seen how close I came to T-bone him, he'd have had a heart attack.
Right in the driver's door. I saw it on tape.
It'd have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah, it would.
I have witnessed that. That was close.
That was a close
It
one.
was close.
Joe Ruttman was alongside of you or something, wasn't he? Wasn't there two of you?
Oh, they were coming out there on tape.
A lot of them.
On tape, it looks real bad.
I went between Darrell. Darrell was coming to the wall, and I only had it was like that. And instead of trying to miss him, I went to the outside, and I didn't miss him or the wall that much. How I got through, I don't know.
That third and fourth turn of Daytona has been rough through the years.
Took a bunch of us
It's
out.
just it's taking its toll.
Really
You and
is.
Pearson had a little deal down there one time, coming down for the white flag. Was it the white
Coming down
flag?
for the checkered
Checkered
flag.
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 A checkered flag.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's we've been racing all day, and back and forth and all that. And I was leading the race right at last, and I kept slowing up, and he kept slowing up, and I kept slowing up, and he slowed up some more. You was running third.
I was running third.
Yeah. Okay. And we was a lap lead you, so we was playing our game. And so the last lap, David passes me down the backstretch. All right. And as soon as he goes into the corner down there, the car goes up, and I try to get alongside of it, and I don't get far enough, I guess. But anyhow, we hit a couple of times going through there, and coming off the number 4. I thought I'd cleared it. Well, I was trying to use as much track as I could too. But
He was hoping.
I was hoping I'd cleared it.
No, he was hoping you could get out of the throttle.
Well, I missed it about that much. He just did hit the right rear bumper on the car, and when it did it, naturally he done gone as far out as he could. He hit me in the wall about the same time, and it caught my car.
They both spin. They're in the wall. Petty is slamming in the wall. He's coming down toward the finish line. Will he make it? He's still moving. The car stops 300, 400 feet shy of the finish line. Pearson is still running.
My right rear, and it got it sideways, so it went down like that, and I was sitting there all straight, and I said, man, I'm going to be all right. And about that time, the wheels was cut one way, and then the car landed, and it made a right-hand turn, right head on in the wall, and spun 2 or 3 times, and I said, well, I'm still going to be all right, because right there's a start-finish line. I mean, it stopped about 20 yards short, and I could see the thing. I couldn't get that thing started, and about that time, here come Pearson. He had spun, then hit the wall, and come down, and was headed for the inside guardrail. Well, Joe Frazon was behind us, and he'd seen the wreck, so he goes down pit road. Pearson's car comes off, out of control, headed for the pit wall, and Joe hits him and straightens him up. Oh, me, you know what I mean? I couldn't get the car started, and it was just one of those things. And then when I won the 200th race, Cale and myself on July the 4th down there, we got in the same deal. Cale passed me up the backstretch and went in the corner, and when he did, he was just, with the draft and stuff, car run a little bit faster, and it moved up. And I got down beside him, but this time I didn't try to pass him up. I waited and hit him at start.
He did that too.
Situation coming down the front straight. Here they are, Sam. They will come across the yellow line just about together, but Petty had the lead.
There's a little bit more to that story.
There is.
Well, I'm gonna hear your side.
I'm gonna tell
He
you.
admitted hitting you.
I'm gonna tell you the rest of the story.
Now for the rest of the story.
The rest of the story. See, what happened, I was following Richard, and I thought I had him where I wanted him. He was running strong, no doubt about it. And I didn't want to pass him to the last lap, wait to the last lap to do it. Well, going into the first turn with 2 laps to go is when the caution came out.
3 laps, yeah, you're right.
And I knew that, no, it was 2 laps to go.
2 laps to go.
2 laps to go, and I knew that whoever got back to the start-finish line then was going to win the race, because it couldn't get started back again.
Somebody turned
Somebody turned over down there, yeah.
We got the
I'll
caution.
tell you about
just
that
as we
wreck.
got
As soon as you get, I'll tell you what I'm on that wreck.
Was you involved in
I was
that?
involved in that wreck.
Is there any wrecks we ain't been involved in?
No.
But the deal was it 2 or 3 laps to go? I believe it was 2.
Whatever.
Well, I believe it was 2 laps to go. Anyway, I had to make my move then. And he beat me back. I got by him, and he beat me back to the start-finish line. And the race was over as far as I was concerned. I forgot there was another lap to go.
Still had
but
a lap to go.
I came around and came in the pit.
went in the pit.
With 1 lap to go running second.
That's right.
I remember that now.
I think I gained a spot on that deal, if I'm not mistaken.
You wound up third, right?
I wound up third, but I gave up second place, because for all practical purposes, the race was over as far as I was concerned.
No, if you can't win, be third.
Yeah, it didn't make any
What the
difference.
heck?
But that was
Should have just went on in the garage.
Drove on down pit road, and it still
What
only
happened?
1 lap to go.
What happened on that wreck when you and Richard was racing back? I was racing Bobby Allison for, I don't know, 4th or 5th or something. And I came upon Doug Hevron in the tri-oval at Daytona. And I started by him on the outside, and something told me, sometimes you start to pass those guys and you say, they just don't know that I'm there, right? Yeah. Something told me, he don't know I'm out here. Yeah. But what am I going to do? I look in the mirror, and there's Allison. I got to go. So I start by him, and sure enough,
he didn't
know I was there. And he came off the tri-oval and started back up against the outside retaining wall, and I slammed on the brakes, but I touched him in the right rear and turned him a little bit sideways, and he corrected. And the last time I saw him, he was heading for the grass as hard as he could go. But the car started, like yours, it started flying through the air and he did a flip or two. But Allison and I was able to keep going. We didn't get involved in the wreck other than the fact we started the wreck. I started the wreck.
Well, see, we just came around. We was just innocent, like you say. I was trying to figure out what he was going to do. I knew what he was going to do. I was trying to figure out what I could do to stop it. And then what happened, all of a sudden, the figuring's out the window.
That's right.
Because, I mean, you come around and they say this is the last lap, and you
Change the
figuring you got
game.
another couple of laps. You just do it. Both of us just run wide open, and I happened to beat him back. That's about what it was.
You never have been the benefactor of those wrecks, have you? You always lose something when you have those wrecks.
Seemed like
I can tell you one time he didn't lose.
Where?
Yeah, tell us about that story, Dale.
We was up in Michigan. He didn't lose that time. I'm telling you that. Scoundrel.
What do you do?
It was 1981. No, I believe it must have been 1982. I was driving Junior's car.
How do you fellas remember all these dates?
I don't understand that either.
Well, I see it could have been 81 or 82. Because that's right after I started driving for Junior. Of course, he'd been driving for Junior. And come down, wouldn't you know, come down the end of the race. It must have been 81. Come down the end of the race, who I got to beat? Him. You know, of course, they're on the radio, all of them telling me, don't let that little, don't let him beat you, you know. And I don't want him to beat me worse than they don't want me to beat him. He's got a camera in his car, so I mean, there ain't no excuse for this not being on record, but it didn't. It should have been, but it didn't. But we come down, we get the white flag, and I'm leading, and I think I got him where I want him, you know. He obviously thinks he's got me where he wants me. But we come off of turn 2, and I went in one too hard a little bit, and I got pushed up a little bit, and he got up alongside of me. And we're coming down the back straightaway, and he eases in alongside of me, about halfway down the back straightaway. Got a camera in his car, right?
Yeah.
You'd think if he run into me or he's going to do anything, you'd see it on the camera, right? Well, they turn the camera. He's going by this way. Instead of turning the camera over here to where they can see me, they turn it around this way. Well, he must have known that. Because while they were turning it around this way, he hit me. I didn't know he controlled them things in my car. We go in the third turn, and he bounces off of me like that right there and makes me go up high, and then he gets on by. Oh, man, well, I'm hot. Boy, I'm livid. And I'm driving for everything I'm worth now trying to catch him back, but he gets through the corner ahead of me. He takes the checkered flag, but when we're coming down to get the checkered flag, he's shaking his fist at me. I mean, he's going to win the race, right? Yeah. He done run into me and knocked me out of the way, and he's shaking his fist at me.
Well, you didn't know I was just waving at
Oh,
you.
man, boy, you weren't waving at me. I ain't going to tell him what you was waving at. But and the closer we got to the line, the madder I got, and I said, if I'll catch you, I know I'm going to catch you, I'm going to run over you. And of course, normally you get the checkered flag, cross the line, you slow down. Well, he knew not to slow down. He knew what was going on. So we're going down in the first turn. You got to slow down when you get the first turn and go around the corner. And here I come, man, he's slowing down. I got a full head of steam. I'm going to knock the fire out of him. Got down there, and just about the time things were getting ready to shape up, a little light came on and said, Waltrip, it's the stupidest thing you've ever done in your life. You're going to kill him and you both. So right at the last second, I came to my senses, and I slammed on the brakes, and I turned the steering wheel to miss him. And when I did, I missed him. But I spun out. It had been raining. I spun down in the infield and got hung up in the mud.
Bogged down.
Couldn't go. I couldn't even get back to the pit to get hot. So I'm humiliated now. So I finally get unhung, I get in the pit, and here's the TV people waiting for me. And they want to know what happened on the cool down lap. I said, what are you talking about, cool down lap? I said, the thing, what happened was in the third turn. Didn't you see it on the camera? No, they didn't see it, you know. They kept asking me, what was the problem on the cool down lap? I said, no problem. If you don't have it on the camera, no problem.
You just bogged down.
The next time we went to Michigan, I told Cale, I said, Cale, I'm going to make a deal with you. I ain't running no more cool down laps. I'm going to stand no more cool down laps. If flag falls, I'm turning in the pit.
Stop it.
That was a good win.
It was.
I got a deal. Cale and I, at Talladega, it rained for 3 or 4 days. And the place was just as muddy as it could be. Started the race, Baker was leading the race, 79 or 80. He's leading the race, and Cale's running about 4th or so, and I'm running about 5th. And coming off the tri-oval at Talladega, and you know, just before they repaved that racetrack, that tri-oval at Talladega was treacherous. Man, it was unbelievable. Just you couldn't get through the tri-oval. So Baker was having trouble. He came off the tri-oval and lost it about the start-finish line. Well, all I can see is Cale's deck lid. You know, I'm right behind him. And all of a sudden, all I could see was a quarter panel of his car because he done turned it sideways right in front of me. And I tried to turn and dodge him, but I caught him in the left rear, and we started spinning. We get off the racetrack, we get down the infield. And naturally, the first thing we hit a mud pole. The mud comes back over the windshield. Now I can't see nothing. And the car don't slow down at all. I'm down in the infield. Oh, I said, man, I must be on the gas. What am I doing on the gas? And I keep trying to find the brake. I said, I got to find the brake. This thing ain't never going to stop. And I'm going down through there, and I'm making 360s. Well, every time I make a 360, I see Cale, because I hit him. But every time I make a 360, we run into each other. And we spun from the start-finish line at Talladega, around and around, bam, just bouncing off each other, up the racetrack between 1 and 2, almost to the outside retaining wall, and back down in the infield. It must have been 500-600 yards we spun. I didn't think that car was ever going to stop.
18 cars in that wreck.
That's the one you jumped
That's
out
the one I got out,
early.
yeah. Well,
You didn't
it
think
really
it was
wasn't
too
too
early.
early. The wreck was over. And
We was the wreck.
yeah,
The first
yeah,
wreck
the
was
first
over.
wreck was over. And you know, I sat there and I knew the car was damaged too much. I couldn't go, so I unbuckled everything and got out to look and see what was going on, because I thought the wreck was over, and it was over. The first wreck was. And all of a sudden I heard noise, tires squealing and all. I looked up, and here come the cars again, spinning down, headed right towards me. And Dave Marcus' car had stopped 20 feet from me, and he was still sitting in the car. He was fixing to get out, but he was still sitting in. And I had walked around to the left front wheel of my car, and when I turned and saw the cars coming, and the car ran straight into the back of Marcus's car and pushed him straight into me. I mean hard. And the only thing that saved me is my knees went up against the tire instead of against the
short
car.
legs.
Yeah, short legs. That was, thank goodness for him that day. But the tire took enough shock out of it that it didn't. I still got some bad knees from it. But I really thought, you know, I was afraid to look. I thought both my legs had been cut off.
Is that?
And that's right. I was afraid to look down. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't look. Dave got out and came to me, and I said, Dave, look down and see if I still got my legs. I thought they were gone.
I remember Junior telling me about that. He said Junior went to the hospital in the infield, and Cale still didn't believe it. He still thought his leg got cut off.
I sure did. It just numbed me, see. It hit so hard, my legs were so numb, I thought they were
couldn't feel
gone.
it.
Yeah.
But it just happened that I was standing in front of that tire, and the tire took the shock out of it.
Man, they've had some Mulder crashes at Talladega.
I'm telling you.
Some of the
Me and
worst
Darrell
I've
got
ever
in a deal
seen.
with the Poconos. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I broke a wheel going over the tunnel deal and went up on the thing and all around, and Darrell was spinning, and we hit
Right,
each other a
spinning,
couple
missing.
times, and everything stopped and got quiet. And we done unbuckle.
Yeah.
And about that time, here they come.
Another
About
wreck.
3 of them, backwards, sideways, upside down. I said, oh no, they're trying to get your belt buckled back up. And,
You actually were starting to get out, and then you could hear them coming, and then all of a sudden you had to get back in and buckle up. And Richard was really lucky, because I don't think it knocked you out, did it?
No, broke my neck, but it didn't.
No, but he was sitting in a really vulnerable spot. I was kind of backed up a little bit more out of the way than he was, and 2 or 3 of these guys, I mean, they were behind. They were just ahead of us, I guess, when it happened. So they went all the way around the racetrack,
It's a 2.5 mile
2.5
racetrack.
mile track, and came back, and almost it came that close to being a disaster.
They got me out. I was conscious enough. I got out and walked around and said, man, my neck hurts. And, you know, y'all be real careful. And took me over to the hospital and put one of them big brace deals on you and take you to the hospital downtown there. And so the cat come back in about an hour, and he said, when did you have your neck broke before? I said, wait a minute, you know what I mean? But I said, I didn't know I'd had it broke before. He said, yeah, it'd been broke before sometime or another, because they could see the calcium deposits and stuff on it.
A lot of these things are funny now that we're talking about. But one of the funniest things after it was over that ever happened to me, I guess, was still talking about Talladega, how things happen down there, and you spin so far, and you do all this stuff. But they had a wreck coming off. Had a bad wreck coming off of the second turn, and it was dry weather that time, and the cars got in the dirt, and the dust just came up, and I wasn't involved in the wreck, but when the dust, you couldn't see. You just drove blind out of turn 2, and I spun down through there and bounced off a couple of cars. I think one went over the top of my car. You just couldn't see where you're going, and the wreck was in front of it, and we were going through the wreck. Well, when it finally stopped, Buddy Baker and I had spun down in and stopped together about halfway down the back stretch. And inside there's a bank of dirt there. It must be, what, 6 feet tall up there? You know, 6 or 10 feet tall, straight up a
For
bank.
the tape, let's call it 10 feet tall.
Yeah, 10 feet tall, maybe taller, I don't know. But anyway, the wreck was over. And Buddy and I got out this time, and we were standing around looking at the damage to our cars and all, and here comes that noise again, squealing and the tires going on, and we looked up, and coming right at us, another group of cars, spinning, coming right at us. And so help me, Buddy Baker and I grabbed each other. He's a big fella, you know, some kind of way. And the next thing I knew, we were both standing on top of that 10-foot bank of dirt. Now, how we got up there, I don't know. I don't ever remember climbing that thing. I know I can't jump 10 feet, but I guess I did. I think he picked me and put me up there, and then I picked him, and we just picked each other up and put us. But it's funny, like I say, it's funny now, but that wasn't funny when that thing happened.
I saw the wreck starting in my rearview mirror.
This particular wreck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the car blow and spin. He was behind me, and I came off the second corner, and I looked, and the car was spinning down, coming off the second corner. So when I get to the front straightaway and the caution lights are on, I said, well, it's just a blown engine and the car spun off the second corner. So I slowed down when I got the caution, but I really didn't slow down that much. I came off the second corner, and I'm telling you what, it looked like an airplane crash.
That wasn't you coming on there and caused that.
No, it wasn't me, because I weaved, I couldn't stop, but I did weave through and I didn't hit anything. But I'm telling you, it looked like an airplane crash.
Like a junkyard.
Yeah.
How many cars?
Junkyard. Yeah.
How many cars was in that wreck?
There were 15 cars in that wreck.
You know, when I said that you wasn't a benefactor of crashes, and Darrell corrected me on that. 1973, Cale and I are fighting for the championship, the Winston Cup. And we go to Rockingham, which is home to me. I live 12 miles from the racetrack, the last race of the season. And they had a point situation then. If you got points for the laps, each lap that you ran, not led, but each lap that you ran. So all I had to do was run about 300 laps, and I win the championship. If Cale wins, if he does this. So the race started. I qualified about 6th or 7th or something. I got in a perfect spot. I'm running about 5th. The first 4 cars is a straightaway in front of me, and I'm in a straightaway by myself, and no cars right behind me. I said, man, this is perfect. And I'm cruising along. I come off the second corner, and there's a car spun and sitting sideways on the racetrack. And oh my God, I try to miss him, and I catch his front end right behind my right front. And I go, bam, crash down through there. I don't ever go all the way around, but the car goes about halfway down the back straightaway and stops. And cars are going, Lenny Pond went between me and the inside guardrail, just rubbed my left side as he went by, but he didn't hit my car. So I said, I'm okay. I'm still going the right direction. The engine had died, so I started the thing up, put it in first gear, and let the clutch out, going to go back to the pits and look at the damage. And I let the clutch out, and the car wouldn't move. I said, what's wrong? And I looked to the right. I said, oh my God. I had no right side. It tore the roll bars, the sheet metal, everything off that car. And I said, oh my Lord, and the Cales don't win this championship. But we took the car in there, and those guys, we had everything in the world there to work. We had welders, but we didn't have no roll bars.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah.
I'd have fallen out of the race. and there was a car sitting there. I don't remember whose it was. I don't even
they
think
didn't ask who
you
it
didn't know
was.
whose it was either.
Ralph Moody said he knew who it,
Yeah.
he knew who it was.
All I know is the guy had gone to get his truck and trailer. That's all I know.
When he come back, he didn't
And when
have
he
no
come
roll bars
back,
to the right
he didn't
side.
have no right side.
I did, but he didn't.
They cut their roll bars and everything out of that man's car.
Yeah.
Whose car was it?
I forget whose it was, but Ralph Moody had been down there with the people, and Ralph said, "Get what you need off that car."
Yeah,
So we did.
No, he's going to take
Richard
his doors up to that.
So we did. And I went back on the racetrack, and the people could see me in the car. I still didn't have any sheet metal, but we put the roll bars back in it, and I tooled around for 300 laps or so.
And beat me out for the championship.
Yeah, sorry about that, Cale.
Yeah, because they told you while you was running that you won the championship, race wasn't over, right?
Yeah, that's
Because
right.
you made enough laps
Yeah.
to make it up.
Right. When they told me that, I quit.
There wasn't no need to run
I mean,
anymore, right?
I was 100 and some laps down. There wasn't any point in racing anymore. So I
You know,
quit.
there are all kind of funny things that happen throughout the years, but one crash that I had was right funny. I was driving for Junior Johnson, and we was running Richmond, and I believe I was leading the race, but I came off that four turn, and y'all know how that four turn gets every now and then. It gets slick, and somewhere during the race there, I came off that fourth turn. That thing got away from me, and it bounced off the wall and hit the inside wall and back out to the outside, and there was a big old fire truck parked down in the infield. I mean, a big monster. And that thing, and that thing turned and just run just as straight head on into that fire truck as I couldn't have drove it in there any better. And just tore my race car all up and messed up the fire truck. And you know those people sent me a bill for that fire truck?
You're kidding.
Yeah, tried to get me to pay for fixing that fire
You
truck.
paid for it, didn't you?
Well, it's not, I haven't yet. But, you know, we're about to miss two of the worst wrecks that ever happened, and that
What?
was Richard's daddy, Lee, and Richard at Daytona when Lee went out of
Yeah, that's
the place down there.
That's right. A lot of the fans remember that Lee left the ballpark at Daytona, and you know that's all on film. We've seen that before. But Richard, in the other quality, you left the park.
In the first 100-mile race, we was running around there, and I think Fireball and Junior was leading the race, and they come by and lapped me or something, and I run right behind them. It was in a big draft, and somebody blew an engine going in the first corner, and there was some big parts and stuff down in the middle of the racetrack. Anyhow, Junior hit something and blew a tire. So I go down to the infield, you know, when he gets sideways, I head this way. When Junior comes down and clips me just enough to send my car right up over the guardrail. Goes out over the top of the deal, lands, you know, goes down. It must be three or four stories too, and it lands down there, you know. So at that time we had windows all in the cars. So what happened in the deal? Something had come up off track and busted the windshield. So you know, when the car stops and stuff, I undo my seatbelt and I jump out. Instead of going out the window, I crawl out through the windshield because it's made nothing there. So I jump out and jump off the car and hurt my ankle and all this. And I keep hearing something. So, what's that racket? Look around, my car's still running. I had to crawl back in the window and cut that thing off, you know. But anyhow, and in the meantime, then I go on back to the hospital there. What happened when the windshield busted? Got a bunch of glass in mine. So they're sitting in there and they pick this glass out and pick the glass out, and by then the other race is going on. And about the time they turn me loose, then Daddy and Johnny Beauchamp crashed going out through the other deal. But they was running up front enough that they got on TV. I missed it. But that was a really spectacular wreck because you see the scenes of the deal. The cars is, you know, way up in there with one of them up under the other one, just bam.
They came out about where the tunnel is.
Just a little past the tunnel. Johnny went on around further, and Daddy landed down there. And so here I am hobbling around on a hurt foot anyway. So we run up there, you know, and go down. And by then they done got him in the ambulance and gone. And there's just, I mean, there wasn't nothing left of that car. It just tore thing all to pieces.
One of the worst wrecks I ever had was at Daytona in about 1964. I was coming off the fourth turn, and they had a big wreck right in front of me, and the car was just bouncing off the wall and going every which way. And so I thought I was going to plow right into them. So I just spun my car, tried to spin it to keep from just going head on into them. And when I spun that car and got it sideways, I didn't see anything else in front of it, but I heard the awful explosion, an awful noise you ever heard in your life. And the whole car just shook, and it just kept spinning and finally stopped down in the grass after it spun several times and all. But what had happened, when I opened my eyes, I didn't have nothing.
When you started looking again.
Oh, yeah, when I started looking again. Okay, that sounds a little better. But when I could see again, I had no windshield, I had no dash, I had no steering wheel, no steering column, nothing. Everything was gone out of the front of the car.
And you just sat there?
You're
I
kidding.
was just sitting there, yeah. But what happened, one of those cars that wrecked in front of me, a spindle, tire, spindle, everything came off of it. And it hit that the wall, and when I turned my car sideways, that spindle and tire and wheel and everything came in the window, in the right window, and it bent the door down and pushed the top up enough to where it came through there. I don't know how fast I was going and how fast it was going, but when it came through the car, I never saw it. It came through the car so fast and took the dash, steering wheel, windshield, everything right on with it. And I thought the car had exploded. I didn't know what had happened. But if that wheel and spindle had come straight into me, it had took me right on out with it. But that's a surprise when you finally wake up and look around and everything's gone, you know. And I was just driving it, and I got no dash, no steering wheel, no everything. And I look over here and see this big hole in the door and the wheel and spindle and everything. I couldn't figure out what in the world had happened.
And then people run up to you and ask you what happened.
Yeah. I didn't know what happened. It was a mess, all I know.
I did that on a dirt track, half-mile dirt track up Mount Clemens, Michigan. Me and a fellow got together coming off turn 4, and the pits was a big bank of dirt, and they had some 2x6s just kind of laid up against this bank. And I was on the outside and we got tangled up, and I turned and hit this bank with the right side, and when the car stopped, one of those 2x6s had went through the right front tire, through the engine firewall, back through the car, and out the rear firewall. I mean, this 2x6 stuck all the way through the car. It took us 5 hours with a handsaw to get this 2x6 out of the car. We had to saw the thing in about 6 pieces to get it out of the car.
Yeah,
and just so you can imagine.
What it would have done if it got you.
Oh, if it had come by me, it'd been all over.
Yeah.
But, you know, I didn't really realize anything was going on until I looked over and saw this 2x6 over there.
It's like at Talladega when Bobby wrecked and almost went in the grandstand. I was right behind him when that happened, and I saw a little puff of smoke, and then I saw this thing that looked like a tire and wheel, but it was a harmonic balancer off the engine. It's about that big, but I saw it come out from under the car. Now we're running 200 mile an hour better, and I mean when it's hard to see these things happening, but they don't happen like you can explain them, but that ain't the way they happen. But I saw that smoke. And I saw that big wheel roll out from under that car, and it hit the front of mine, and I dodged away because I thought it was going to come through the window. It hit the nose, hit the top of the roof, broke out my windshield, and I didn't know where he went. I didn't know he wrecked because when it did that, I did like that, ducked down, and when I looked up, I'd already gone past him, and I looked in the rearview mirror, and his car was disintegrated, torn all to pieces. And there's no doubt in my mind I would have hit him. Or I'd have done something. I'd have went in the wreck with him. Stupid, yeah. I didn't want to say that, but if that harmonic balancer hadn't come up over my car, it did. Because I didn't. When I looked away, I knew not to turn the steering wheel. I just held it straight, and I went straight past him, and didn't hit anything.
Yeah, if you'd have been in there trying to drive,
if I'd have seen him do that, I'd probably done one of these numbers or one of these numbers.
Well,
and
you'd
wrecked.
have had to.
I know.
Yeah, you'd have had to.
But I didn't know that, so it didn't wreck me.
Well, I tell you what, sometimes you look up in the mirror and see that stuff going on. There's no way in the world that we can describe to you what it feels like or what it looks like when you look up in the mirror and see that stuff going on. You know, race cars today are a lot safer because now the car that I'm driving now has Lexan, has bulletproof glass behind the windshield. so that yours probably do too. Because if something does go through the windshield, hits that Lexan, and at least it's going to slow it down. I don't know if it's going to stop it, but it'll slow it down, that's for sure.
You know, the thing about all these stories that we're telling, particularly the ones back in the late 50s, early 60s, the reason our cars are safer today is because the cars haven't changed that much structurally, but they've only changed, they've improved. Every time something's happened to one of our cars, they've learned from it, and they haven't gone out and redesigned a whole new car. They've just made the car better and better and better. This car that we're driving today is the same race car structure-wise that you were driving in 1962, I guess, 61 maybe.
Basically.
Roll cage, frame rails, and that sort of thing.
If we have trouble, they put more roll cages and stuff like that. But what they've done, like you say, it's a basic car. We just keep improving it, and if you have any trouble, you make it bigger, better, stronger, whatever.
Every time something, you know, it's a chain of events. You fix something, and that breaks something else, and that breaks something else. But sooner or later, we've come up with a really a pretty bulletproof piece. When you think about the licks that we've all taken in race cars, and it fractures your ribs or they dislocate your shoulder, it's incredible, absolutely incredible what a race car, a Winston Cup stock car, the punishment it can take, and the driver can walk away from it. And that's why we're all able to sit here tonight and, talk about it, laugh about it, and feel pretty confident. You know, if a lot of guys sat down and told us many stories, they said, I ain't getting in one of them things again, no way. But and feel pretty comfortable about going out tomorrow and racing.
And we can laugh about them, because I'm gonna tell you, everything that we've laughed about tonight was serious when it happened, but it wasn't funny.
It was dead serious at the time.
I promise you.
Yeah,
And the folks, the thing is, now remember, all these stories that we're telling, we were in a race car. You know, we were bolted in with the pipe, roll bars all around us. Don't try this. You know what we're don't try it on the street, because you don't have that protection, and you know you're not going to be able to laugh and tell the stories about it because you're not going to be here.
Yeah, these are not stock cars. They are stock appearing cars.
Which is the worst wreck you've ever had, Cale?
Oh, there's been so many. I don't know. I think we've all had, you know, close calls, I guess. I think the hardest I ever hit was at Rockingham. I think you hit me, didn't you, Darrell? Didn't you?
No, that was Neil Bonnet.
That was Neil?
He hit you the first race, I hit you the second race. Which one are you talking about?
Both of them were hard. But I think that's, you know, and Rockingham's a mile racetrack, but that thing spun and turned around and went into the wall driver's side, you know, and I got a bad shoulder from it, bad knees from it. And, but
any lick driver's side is a tough lick, because you don't have any protection there. You don't have the crush factor that you have on the right side of the car.
That's right. The worst wrecks and the worst wrecks that we feel, the wrecks that makes us hurt the worst, are the ones that really don't look that bad as far as a spectator is concerned.
Just like, you know, I guess some people that don't believe that's true, you know, after talking about the car going airborne at 200 miles an hour at Daytona and stuff like that, but it's that sudden stop that gets you, and it can happen on a short track just as easy as it can on a super speedway.
What we was talking about the other night. Was talking about the speed deal, and they want to slow the cars down or whatever. And you know, and I told him, I said, look, I've seen worse wrecks and more cars in the grandstands where they run 80 and 90 mile an hour than I ever have at 180 or 200 mile an hour. So really, the speed's irrelevant. You know, I mean, we run Talladega or Daytona. It's a great big racetrack. You know, you run at Martinsville or someplace like that. That's a little bitty place. I run a Bristol or something like that. I feel like I'm running fast at that place. Boy, you go into a corner at Bristol, and you know if you miss anything, you're bam. Well, at Talladega, you feel the same thing, so you don't feel any more. There's just more room, and so you don't get the sensation of the speed on those big super speedways.
You know, and folks, really and truly, what happens in a race car is you see trouble coming. You know, we've laughed about closing our eyes and but that's exactly what happens. You see trouble coming, you say, oh no. And just, you know, Darrell leans forward and closes his eyes. I kind of lean back and close my eyes.
I quit looking. I didn't close my eyes. I just quit looking. Just go blank.
But Bobby Allison crashed in Rockingham one time, coming off the second corner.
Yeah, I remember that.
In Roger Penske's car, I believe it was.
The Mercury.
And he goes in for 2 or 3 times. And I was in the middle of the wreck, But I didn't think too much about it until later on that week, Tuesday or Wednesday, we're getting this car cleaned up, and they said, the body man said, we've got to repaint the car. I said, how come? He said, you've gotten battery acid all over. We started looking at the car, and what happened was that Bobby, in one of his revolutions, one of the left rear tire had hit my right front, and the car had went over the top of my car and throwing battery acid all over my car as it went across my car and came back and hit the left side of my car. He did a complete flip over my car. I went under him, I should say, while he was in the air.
And I didn't hit you going over and coming down.
Yeah, hit me going on both sides of the car. Had the imprint of his car and battery acid all over my car, and I didn't know that. Well, I tell you, folks and guys, this has been absolutely delightful. I hope that you people have enjoyed this as much as I have listened to these guys. It's unbelievable. Thanks, and we'll try to do this maybe again sometime.
Sure, it's been a lot of fun and real enjoyable. And I enjoyed listening to these stories from Cale,
I don't
Richard,
believe a lot of it. I enjoyed it too.
I think
They're all
most of
true,
it-
folks.
I can vouch for the ones I heard.
Folks, thanks again.
Good night.
Good night.
So long.
Happy trails to you until we run into each other again.
You know, I hated to contradict your story about that Michigan thing. But I was the one on the outside, and he was on in. He was on in.
I remember it that way.
I hope you've enjoyed the show. I know we've had a lot of fun reminiscing about the past and our close calls. If you're interested in other videotapes about the highlights of NASCAR Winston Cup racing, we have several to offer. For information, write to NASCAR Videos, P.O. Box K, Daytona Beach, Florida, 32015.